Welcome to the 6th Annual Mother Tongue Film Festival. Thank you for joining us. My name is Joshua Bell, and I'm Curator of Globalization at the National Museum of Natural History and co-director of the Mother Tongue Film Festival. I want to begin by acknowledging with respect the Piscataway people on whose traditional territory the Smithsonian, and indeed my home, stand, and whose relationship with the land west of the Chesapeake Bay continues today. Founded in 2016, the Mother Tongue Film Festival opens on the United Nations International Mother's Language Day, which happened annually on February 21st. The festival is an effort of Recovering Voices, which is a Smithsonian initiative involving the National Museum of Natural History, the Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage, the National Museum of the American Indian, and the Asia Pacific American Center. We are grateful to our Smithsonian and non-Smithsonian partners for their support and extend our thanks to our sponsors, particularly for the screening of this film, which received federal support from the Asia Pacific American Initiatives Pool, administered by the Smithsonian Asia Pacific American Center and the New Zealand Embassy in the US. Today, I welcome you to the Land of Ebb Q&A. This program is presented as part of the 2021 Mother Tongue Film Festival, The Healing Power of Storytelling. This year, the festival takes place entirely online, and as always, highlights the confluence of cinematic and mother languages. Today, we invite you to a conversation with director Andrew Williamson and lead actor Jonithen Jackson about the film Land of Ebb, an official selection of this year's Mother Tongue Film Festival. If you're new to the festival, I encourage you to check out our website, which is mothertongue.si.edu, to learn about the featured films and the upcoming events. Your feedback is always welcome on the festival's social media channels. Now I'd like to welcome our guests. Director Andrew Williamson joining us from Hawaii, lead actor Jonithen Jackson also joining us from Hawaii, and Jonithen is joined by his granddaughter, Tarji Jonithen, who's going to be helping with translations. Aloha, everyone.
Aloha.
So thank you for making such a powerful film and for joining us. It was really a delight to watch the film and as part of the selection process. I was hoping we could begin by talking about how the film came to be made. And this is really a question for both of you or all of you.
I guess I can start. Yeah, the story of how the Land of Ebb came to be. I've been living here on the island for about 16 years, and we initially I met Jonithen through a mutual friend who had been working in his community. He's about an hour and a half from where I live. So I heard about this community of people about an hour and a half from here, and there was this guy who wanted to make movies, and that was about all I knew. So I had to go meet him. So we, my co-producer, and I at the time, we drove down there and met Jonithen, met his family, and really that's where it started. Like we were looking to make a feature-length film. Jonithen was looking to get into filmmaking. So we started talking. We ended up spending a lot of time down there, getting to know him, hearing his stories, just finding out like how, like just the fact of him and his family and community being there, the story that involves, which I knew very little about, and we sort of explore in the film. So I didn't take long for us to, my co-writer and I, to decide that this was a story that was, worth telling. So we basically presented the idea to Jonithen, like, hey, let's do this together. And that's kind of where it started.
Tarji, does Jonithen want to add to that about his involvement in the film?
Yeah.
My name is Jonithen Jackson. I thanks everybody, and I know this time is make me more thinking about the future about the movie because I meet somebody. It's um, powerful for me. So I thanks everybody this time.
Okay, great. Well, so following on from that, my understanding is that film emerged collaboratively. Andrew, you've said in previous conversations that as a filmmaker, you couldn't make a film like this without coming in and working with the community. So I just was wondering if you all could reflect a bit on what that collaboration looked like. Was that about rewriting script? Was it incorporating aspects of, in this case, Jonathan's personal life? Can you give a sense of that?
Yeah. Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, both of you.
Okay. Well, actually, I was curious. Well, yeah. Okay. I'll give you my take on that first. But yeah, no, that's absolutely right. Like, there's no way this movie could have been made without Jonathan's cooperation and the cooperation of the whole community. I mean, if you see the film, I mean, so much of it, like, we shot on location, like at his home, in sort of the homes of other members of the community. I mean, we were there daytime, nighttime. A lot of them ended up in the film. So some of the principal characters, as well as a lot of the extras. So yeah, like the whole process. I mean, there's just no way it couldn't have been done if we hadn't, like, decided from the beginning. It's like, this is something we both want to do. So I think for us, it was a great opportunity to tell a story that hadn't been told before. And I mean, I want to hear Jonathan's take on this, but I know for him, it was like his sort of crash course in filmmaking. Because when we talked to him, he's like, I mean, I put a little bit of it in the film, but he just has this mind he loves building things. He loves figuring things out. So he'll mechanically, specifically. So like when you start talking about camera gear and stuff, to him, it's like might as well be walking into a candy store, But he hadn't really had any actual filmmaking experience where he's like telling a story on video or film. So this was, I remember talking to him during the process, and I mean, every time we shot, he would have a question or two about what is that? Why are you shooting it this way? What's going on here? So it was kind of cool to see that happen as well. But yeah, Tarji, why don't you ask him like what the experience was like for him to.
Experience ay may karkaman pijaya ma'am.
Chuan wewenel ban labi pepadap iskajarbal nanin yay kujin parent pen marungun tirilok choron ngayar juga chuan alena kaman wewinin ak ngan kaman pija enodan en trupa charbalewa is mechanic ijalage money eja buengan kaman imen kaina kinge itamak kay marungin kaman chat pa to kuilo pija ngay your problem ngan kenjar wal kaya
It was a good learning experience. Through it all, he learned a lot. He, like Andrew said, he is a mechanic, so he knows that producing and directing in a movie is not easy. And we come from a really struggling life. Like, we have to fight to get to where we are. So he is a mechanic, like Andrew said. So he knows that, like a green screen, he had to paint our wall. Like, he knows like money is not enough for us, but of what little he knows here and there, he knows that he can build everything. So out of the movie, he experienced a lot that helps him to get to where he wants.
So maybe following up from that, Darji, could you? I guess I'm wondering for Jonithen why it was important to participate in the making of this film.
Participate
And what about common pija elange chenach eno chuan kagay may mijingan rorek walling tak rorek ruto tak ilo kaminutia ilo chabre chicken kagay may mijuot elang pija ko na minin kagay may ajri rorek ruto takam kilen charbalem bayun ko repon.
Most importantly, he was really just thinking about the future of the kids and the importance of how we lived back then and how we were brought up in the beginning and stuff like that.
And in that sense, the film becomes a way to help transmit stories or to kind of reflect on community.
Pijay kwa kamane ngan reflect the community or kagame med eto meuren galarga ilargar meur.
Man itamak ke bijay ne ko ke kinge kich karar mijin ro ligtada a yalage kamman pija chuan pato yola ban aur yon lalin em woni na choji kamman pija ke pija pato matan pato ko rilgun labilo lalin ngan kamman em yalage pebanato ko lo ailun ko lik elange manwata charwali pilum ke na ranaj wal ning tak.
So knowing that making films and everything is something that's long shot and it's big in the whole world. So he wanted to do this movie especially for his community and the children, so they know about the brighter future, and yes, so they can be brought up and know about our past and how we were brought up and everything and how struggle was.
Great. I mean, one of the things that struck me too, and I work as an anthropologist in the Pacific, not in the Marshall Islands, but in Hawaii and in Papua New Guinea. But I think one of the things that is very striking about the film, and it's a testament to you all, is that it tells a story of a diasporic community that many people in the U.S., mainland U.S., do not know about. And so I guess a question for both of you is, what aspects of the diasporic experience of Marshallese was it really important for you all to present in the film, if that makes sense?
Maybe define diasporic.
Well, so for Marshallese living outside of the Marshall Islands, so either living in Hawaii, I also understand that there's communities in, I believe it's Arkansas, so the Midwest. But your film is directly about Marshallese on the Big Island. So what aspects of that experience were really critical? And you all of you have alluded to aspects of that, but I didn't know if in making the film you kind of had we've got to communicate this or that aspect of life.
Ikajutok anan kan ukotagayo ilam pelo jagain kaman atan ende im jenam negar pelo eneo.
ngajalam na ke elgun labi ko ta ke ngajilo ilo kamani mengain ken ke kagay mije lukun wene na kaman pijage elgun lang pwebnato ko ilo ailingin majo emichop kanan luji pwebnato ko pubum chimarit pangani emenaj menin kagay mimi armiro ailing ko kap majal ke nangin chongon uchuan pwebnato ir
He it's a it's a big difference, obviously, because back home is more harder, and this film kind of helped him out because now he wants to move forward and try and make more movies of all the stories that our ancestors and all the beliefs that our ancestors left for him.
Interesting. Andrew, is there anything you want to add to that as kind of an outsider of that story that you really wanted to help kind of convey?
No?
Yeah. Oh, are you talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you, Andrew.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Um,
And I'll come back to, I mean, what you guys brought up, Tarji and Jonithen, is interesting, but I want to give Andrew a chance, and then we'll come back to something you said earlier.
Okay.
yeah. Well, I think it's like what Tarji said earlier. I think she said it since we started recording, but is it 40 or 50 or like a huge amount of, like at least half or around there of the Marshallese no longer live in their their homeland. And I mean, it's because of the nuclear testing partially, but now it's an environmental issue. So there's actually a lot like more going on there. But it's just like there's not. I mean, there's definitely other examples of that in the world, but it's just such a crazy paradigm to like be, have an identity as a nation, as a people group, but kind of no longer like it's like your homeland is disappearing, so I think, yeah, I kind of think we in part wanted to speak to that in the film, at least I believe so, because of that unique situation. It's like that. So there's this sort of like paradigm of, yeah, trying to hold on to that culture. I mean, not just because you're in a different place, but because like where that culture was birthed, yeah, is disappearing. And at the same time, trying to assimilate and better the future of your kids, your grandkids, in a new culture, a new way of life. So I think that's always going to be difficult for anyone in any community and any group that goes through that. But I just, because this story is happening here where I live and in other places in the U.S. and like you said, like so many, I mean, most of the people that I mentioned this to have barely, like when I started talking about the film, when we made the film, when we showed the film, like most people still like have very little or no idea that like this happened to them or that they're even here. There's big communities of Marshallese in the U.S. So anyways, yeah, I think that's what makes it unique.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, Jonithen, Tarji, going back to something you were saying earlier, I mean, the theme for this year's Mother Tongue Film Festival is the healing power of storytelling. And so I was wondering if there was any healing at a community level and perhaps at a personal level in kind of telling this difficult story, and then kind of as a community watching it, right? Because there is this big difference between knowing something about being dislocated through nuclear testing, but then also creating a new way in which that story is told, if that makes sense. So what healing was involved in making and watching of this?
What do you mean by healing?
Well, a lot of the films that we've shown deal with various traumatic events. And so part of what my understanding in making films like this, it's about shining light on a sensitive topic. And one does that in order to educate people so that, you know, people can know what's happening to the Marshallese. And so I was just wondering if that experience of being in a movie, making a movie about one's experience, if that was, I'm assuming it was a positive experience, but if it helped or caused people to think about their stories differently. And you've alluded to it slightly with Jonithen now thinking about different films that he wants to make. Does that clarify?
Yeah, thank you. Kola kalale pijayawam ilam karpai. Oh, lay kachidak pijayanam emajagay anchin tereu ka mananga kia emajagay anchino kamano kotak ngan haramajerinam. Ilo air alo je pijayawam kola lale elangay kotak.
ayat lang utak kuak enach utak ko ilo na shan family ngan community ilo wawuna aru kalim jagake enot eworchuan enot kanan karilok community where kinge yarjap kamu chugul emi pangan awlep rorek page ba it kamani mengo ramarong nelak bagomun kalim jaga buen kumin calage e jalok in ibu lo meur digijap lo meurin awlep rej marong emmak lam nageun nane wala bin lam nageu elap tatain karilap rorid em retemak we renajalak kamani emmalok jen kamani
Yung kola kalale elangay kotak kachidak kamane.
ngajalam nag eor ugotak agi japan pailo ar dukun melelekin aga ugotak eurio kinge arami jiro itu pa ngai kamani mengain.
Yes, he does see slight changes because, you know, people depend on him to do stuff and, you know, he's making moves. So, yes, there's slight changes.
Let me let me answer that, and then we can riff, I guess, if that's all right.
Yeah, please.
I'll give you my version. So to speak to the potential healing, I remember one incident we have. So to kind of give context, the Marshallese community are one of the newest kind of groups of immigrants to the islands. More recent, I should say, maybe the last 20. I think, Jonithen, you came here in 95. Is that right?
91.
91. Okay. So there tends to be a lot of prejudice. So there's a lot of prejudice towards the Marshallese community and other Micronesian communities in Hawaii. I can't speak for the other states from the locals. So so this is just a reality. Like, I mean, Jonithen told me stories of you know, like it's kind of, I pulled one of the a few of the scenes in the film from it, but you know, being cheated in certain levels, like, you know, where they're working and, you know, someone kind of weighs the scales, or just honestly, like stories of I mean, slurs and words that are used to describe them. So it's a reality. And it was a really cool thing that happened when we were at the Hawaii International Film Festival. Jonithen was there with me, and we were in the audience. The film ended. We got up to do a Q&A, and like in the middle of the Q&A, this small group of Hawaiians, like native Hawaiians, got up and they did a chant. And it was basically, they were speaking in Hawaiian, but basically they said afterwards that it was basically a statement of solidarity with Jonithen and the Marshallese. So it was a kind of an emotional moment for, I can't speak for Jonithen, but I think for all of us. So, and that happened after the film screened, so there was this very kind of, and it was, obviously more symbolic. It was just a few people, but it was like what they saw in the film, it sort of prompted them to be like, they saw humans instead of just a group that they have negative feelings towards. They saw it like an actual story, and like, oh, there's a lot of similarity, between what's going on. And then so this chant that they did afterwards was kind of an outward showing of that. So that was, I think, and then things like that, people would say things to me and Jonithen, through the time that we were screening it and stuff, similar. So, so I think there was a real, and like anything, it's like when you tell a story, people are allowed to kind of get a peek into a life or something that they maybe previously just had sort of a stereotyped version of it in their head. So it allows more connection and thus healing.
Let me say, kung bagay pijame kun charwalangan community na rilo away kinke Riawayim rebellic ye mujar lo pijain retamagi ngai kanan ngani retamagi ngai your problem ko rejito lo community na an rumajo kinem ngerilu imi kanan ngani relgun tamagi tago ngai pa.
With the movie that came out, Hawaiians and other nationalities did watch it, so now they kind of have faith in Jima and they believe in Jima. So Jima, grandpa, sorry. So
Josh and I were like, what?
so
Juma.
now they look up to him. So when so that's one of the changes. So when he says something, it's something that they kind of they not kind of, but they believe, like they trust him. They have a lot of trust in him, and they believe him in everything that he needs to say about his community.
Wonderful. That's really great. I was wondering also, and then this is really a question for both you, Tarji, and Jonithen, and Andrew, if you want to answer. Throughout the film, English is used, but then Marshallese is used. So I was wondering if you could reflect on the importance of speaking Marshallese and how that is or isn't changing.
Ilo pijayan ewar kajin malam kajin pele. Yo kamaram kamala yo jangan orang kajin ini dengan kajin.
Ngajalam nag kajin aurgen wachuan aule bri aurgen wachuan ngan kalmalo jan kage ilo aralut pijang chuan what language emman ag elak roge ebar chibang roje me rechep melelegin par chuan kajin.
In the movie, it does show subtitles for those that don't understand our language, and we made it for those that want to watch it but don't know the language. To answer the question, our language is very important, um, because it's part of our culture. If we don't know the language, it's a missing part into the culture. So it is very important to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Tarji, as a kind of younger Marshallese Islander, seeing the film, and I realize your grandfather's in it, so you have a particular affinity to the film. But how has the film, if at all, has it helped you to think about being Marshallese in Hawaii? Has it kind of changed your perception of your community at all? What has been the impact of the film for you?
Um, it's definitely made moves because a lot of majority of the kids that are in college now are were mostly from that movie. Majority of them. So I believe it's making changes. A lot of people that watched it, they're out there, they're doing their thing. They're fighting through struggles and everything. For me, I grew up here. I moved here when he was here. So basically, when I was born, I practically grew up. And I think the moral of the movie was to explain how his life was back then. So it's a good experience for me to watch the movie and learn from it because I learned what he fought through when we were growing up. So kind of, gives us a positive vibe of how we should how I should what I should do and what I need to do in the future.
That's fantastic. Kind of my wrap up question, and Jonithen alluded to this earlier about the films you want to make. I would love to know what new projects Jonathan's doing, Taji, if you're involved at all, and if you have other projects you're working on, and then Andrew, what you're working on in terms of films. So,
Cuma kajidak ewarga ambar new project quite process or lam nagan kaman.
Ay eor chuan pwe banado gi ganan kamane ak kin ke Andrew war kanan teji ilo chuan movie ka karuru ito an pangani mina chino mogota pijayo kin nga megi ikela gilo el capture em echanga ot iper igigil iperilalam ikato gyonem irrilal taglale kigim keruru kamanagin batalal short movie nga.
He's still in the learning process. So he does have this little experience that he's working on. It's a short movie that he wants. It's about him on the he's just testing it. So it's just the testers. It's of him on the helicopter. Um, he has he has crops. He built a helicopter for it. He's on the helicopter.
Ikato kumlak trilal tagiloan au papulal o homeless em chap kaya ko tagitem pero jilingem kamanan warong minajilum kanin ni jiling.
I'm enjoying Tarji's reactions.
I'm kind of confused with what he's trying to say. Um,
Inay kajarwal helicopter nam kayato
Yeah.
lak trilal tag ilo kigilo maye ina jalika pengay kapuk tagay em lagi rilal tak iju tagam kanin ni jiling lagam pa tahunan merong tem kamanan kokurean kigi.
I'm so confused. So he's just, just little by little, he's gathering thoughts about this
Story.
this story that he's coming up. But so far, He's got a helicopter. He's flying up in the air and with the helicopter, and he looks down and he see himself sleeping on the ground as a homeless, and he tawa ka nakakalawa. I'm sorry, this is just funny. So
Hey, okay.
he tries his hard to cover his head, cover his ears with his hands, not to listen to all the noise coming from the sound of the helicopter effects. And then he just finally gets up and then looks up at himself in the helicopter, and yells at himself because you know
He's playing
making
both
noise,
characters.
making too much noise, and here he is, another him on the ground laying down trying to
Nice.
have peace.
So what's the moral of the story?
um Element ba natin, like
What's the
tao
message? What's the
ta
message?
medyo diyan pidana, like dukun highlight din pidana.
Comedy.
Comedy.
Perfect.
That's a
The
good message.
comedy, I guess, for whoever
Yeah.
wants to laugh.
Uh, it's
It's
great.
important.
Andrew, what about you? Are you working on a new film at the moment?
Yeah, I've switched gears. I've got a project, a feature film project. It's a thriller. Takes place here in Hawaii. Largely based on someone that I've gotten to know on another part of the island. Very very kind of, and it's very uh, rural setting. So yeah, it's a thriller. Involves two older brothers that a crime's committed and they have to. It turns into a police chase. So very genre, but it's also very much kind of. I want it to be baked into kind of the Hawaiian local culture. So I'm excited about it, but it's right now we're still in the development phase. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
Did Jonithen have anything that I didn't ask that he wanted to kind of comment about the film or anything we've been talking about?
Cuma lang kay manang kwartanan Arab or lang kay ande ka japin kachitok kwartanan wa kay Arab kachitok.
Kin ga yar pamnado kin pijaw kiya kun pijaw majin wat practice ina chino and what kachi the pen true empire or an pijay iba ever were chuan really login common pijay aga awle ngajalam naga elgun important il chakaron nga ito ka kariwak elban important an chalito kilo unto em pwebanado chakaron iljum chakala janat melele
Ano kamalagan an balang pita.
majin wati
Majin ba?
pijame
Oh. So no, he's just wanted to explain that after his short comedy clip movie, he's trying to work on something else. Another movie? Another movie.
Oh, fantastic.
story already
The story is already in his head and he's puzzling everything together, the script.
couple gunaur
Fantastic.
el gunaur chonino laban aur pailo au pwebanado iper kia kaman pen dukun kajura lamna kia ngat kaman dukun kajur yar chupugi pachen akie rubugi pachen
Just having this opportunity to be able to do this with you guys kind of gives him more, it influences him more and gives him more interest in this. He was just 100%, really, he was 100% about everything. Now he said he's at 200% and more.
Fantastic. That's amazing. Well, thank you. I want to, unfortunately, we're really out of time. So I want to thank you, Andrew, Jonithen, and Tarji, for taking the time, for sharing your experiences and insights. And it's been a really pleasure to laugh and talk with you. And thank you again. And I want to thank everyone who's watched, listened, and commented on this video. And I also want to thank Sarah Rothman, Kate Hess, and everyone who helped to make this conversation possible. Please follow the Recovering Voices page on Facebook to get notifications about the future events, and find us on YouTube, visit our website, and come back here for our next program, which will be the Healing Power of Storytelling Roundtable discussion on Friday, May 14th. So thank you all.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, Andrew, Thank you, Andrew, to open the door for me in the world.